Quite a few times.
50 times?
More.
100 times?
More.
200 times?
More.
500 times?
Probably.
Hello guys, and welcome back to the Cedi Investor. Now in today's video we are going to be discussing why I'm currently buying MTN and why I still think it presents a very great opportunity for investors. MTN is currently trading at 2.98 Ghana cedis. It had a massive sell-off this week. Investors are currently selling off, and you know it's interesting to see because I believe MTN is like the poster boy of the Ghana Stock Exchange, and literally everything you would want for a great investment. So let's dive deep into this video, and I'll go over my reasons for buying MTN and why I still think it's a great company. Now, before I dive deep into why I'm buying MTN, I think it's only fair for me to describe my investment strategy so that you guys really understand me. Now, I focus on companies that are high quality. I want companies that are growing their fundamentals really strong and can resist any macroeconomic environment, right? So I want strong companies with strong fundamentals growing their earnings. I love to see companies that are giving back to investors, their shareholders. I want to see value being returned to shareholders, and I want to see them being traded at fair values, right? So let's go over my investment strategy. So like I said earlier, I want high quality companies with competitive moats and resilience across any macroeconomic environment, right? So I want strong companies that can resist any shocks in the environment, and usually if you analyze the world, there's always shocks. We recently had domestic debt exchange program, we recently had the COVID, and you know there's always things that are uncertain. So I want companies that are so fundamentally strong that regardless of any macroeconomic environment that we are in, it is likely to survive and thrive, right? And I want companies with strong competitive moats, and this is a term that was used by Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors ever, and it means companies with strong brands that are really in the eye of customers and people are really loyal to them, right? And you know, I'll come to MTN, but you can see MTN has a very strong competitive moat, especially in Ghana. Now, I also want companies with robust fundamentals. They are growing their earnings at a very fast rate, expanding their margins, and consistently growing their free cash flow. Now, this is quite different for companies like banks, which I'll probably discuss in a different video, because banks are usually highly leveraged. They use debt to make money, so you know, through deposits. So when you are analyzing a bank, free cash flow is not really something I would probably say you should focus on. But then for other companies like manufacturing companies or other industry companies, technology, consumer staples, I want to see that free cash flow being consistently grown and kept at a high rate. And like I said, I want to see shareholder focused capital allocation, so through efficient reinvestment, value creation, or growing dividends. You're either paying me back through dividends or you're reinvesting into the business on things that I know can actually make up more money for the business, right? Some people or investors are dividend investors. I feel like I'm a value investor. So I focus on the value being given back to me as a shareholder. It doesn't necessarily have to be dividends, as long as there's value. So if you are growing your business, you are investing into things that will continue to increase the growth of your business, I'm okay with it. I don't necessarily have to see you paying me dividends before I'll be happy as an investor. So I don't consider myself as a dividends investor, but I would rather say I'm a value investor, a combination of growth and dividends, right? And also, I want to see the company being traded at a fair valuation. I mean, sometimes I'm willing to buy companies at a premium if I can see that their future cash flows are great, or it's worth it for the kind of growth they'll have in the future. But most times, I really try to find companies that are trading at fair valuation, and if good enough, at a low multiple or low valuations, right? So companies that people are not really looking at, strong, robust companies that are trading at low valuations, low PEs, low fundamentals, the cash they are growing, the rate at which they are growing their earnings, it doesn't match up to the share price, right? So yes, that's something I like to look out. And lastly, I want to see companies with strong balance sheets, low debts, or consistently paying down their debts, and reasonable and capex. Now, like I said, the capex, I don't mind companies spending capex, right? As long as I see some value from it. It has to be great capital expenditure, not something which actually some bullshit be. And lastly, I also want them to. I want to see them growing their cash, and ideally, I would like to see their total assets at least double the size of their total liability. Now, this is not like a deal breaker for me, but ideally, if you do have it, it's also is great to see, right? So yes, that is what I would say is my investment strategy. Now let's go into why I'm buying MTN. Now, even if you didn't really understand the whole investing thing, and basically from my explanation in terms of what I would like to see when it comes to my investment strategy, I feel like that basically explains what MTN is in Ghana. MTN is like I said earlier, is the poster boy of the Ghana stock market. The Ghana stock market rides on MTN. If MTN is performing well, the Ghana stock market is performing well. If MTN is not performing well, most times the Ghana stock market is not performing well. So yeah, it's I think it's the best company literally in terms of growth when it comes to the Ghana Stock Exchange. And yeah, but don't take my word for it. I think information is key, and we'll go through that. So let's look at MTN's numbers, right? Now, when you look at Scalcom PLC's financials, you can see that it's currently trading at 2.98 Ghana cedis, and it's down the week because investors are selling off MTN. And I was playing my thoughts of why I think MTN is currently trading at a low price. It started off the week at 3.2 Ghana cedis, and it's now trading at 2.98. So it's down about 6.88%. But and maybe if you guys are also confused, the actual company is called Scalcom PLC. That's like their company name, the main name. So they don't be confused if I say Scalcom, it's still MTN. Now we can look at their statements, right? When you look at their income statements, you can see that their revenues, they've been growing at an amazing rate. 2020, 6 billion Ghana cedis, 6 billion Ghana cedis in 2020, up 19 billion. Let me adjust this. Up 19 billion this year to date for Q1. So let me focus on 2024. It ended off 2024 17 billion Ghana cedis. Amazing to see. Great. And so it looks like the way it performed in Q1, I'll probably go through the Q1 statements. It looks like it's going to probably end off 2025 at a massive rate as well too. Amazing to see. Now, it's not just the revenue that they are growing, but if you look at their net income too, it's the same story. Started off 1.3 billion, and now about 5 billion in 2024. So amazing work from MTN. They've been growing their free cash flow. It's a little bit down in Q1 2025, but I expect it to go up by the end of 2025. But you can see, like, it's just an up. Everything I look at is just an upward trend for MTN. Their earnings per share growing it for investors, value being created. Now, if you look at their margins, massive. Their gross margin, they've been growing at a slower rate, but then it has been growing. You can see that it's been growing. The operating margin, same story, has been growing. You can see the profit margin, same story. A little bit down in 2024, but you can see, I'm sure they will probably make it back up in 2025. So you can see their margins are just, the free cash flow has been going up and down, but at least it's been a little bit stable. So but it's okay. You can see that the margins, they've been growing their margins at a very great rate, and that can be said for the EBITDA, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization, up. EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes also up, and the EBIT margin also going up. So almost every item line that you look at MTN, especially in the income statement, is just on an upward trend. Some are slower growth, some are faster growth, but it's just amazing to see. Now let's look at their balance sheet, right? Their cash position, exactly the same storyline. Growing at 788 million in 2020, now 5 billion Ghana cedis in the first quarter of 2025. You can see their net assets, total current assets are 33 billion, their total assets 47 billion, and their total liabilities around 33 billion. So probably say it's not really 2 to 1, but 1 to 1.5, 1 to 1.4. So I would love to have the total assets a little bit higher than the total liabilities, but it's okay. It's okay. They don't have any long-term debts at this moment. They've paid down all their debts, so you can see they are paying. One thing I love to see, company paying down their debts and growing their cash, which MTN is doing an amazing job of. In terms of their net debt, they've actually kept it at a pretty stable level, around 2 billion Ghana cedis, but because they have a cash reserve of about 5 billion in the coffers, I think they can pretty much pay all their debts. They can pretty much pay all their debts. In terms of long-term debt, actually, they don't even have any long-term debts like that. So basically, one thing I like to see is companies consistently pay off their debts or pay down their debts, or try and slow the growth of their debts and grow their cash reserves very at a very fast rate. And we can see from their balance sheet that MTN is doing exactly that. And one thing I also like about MTN is they spend a lot on capital expenditure. And I always make a joke with my friend that Ghanaian companies always like to play it safe. You would never see or hear a Ghanaian company trying to invest into new technology, trying to bring out some new strategies or new ways of doing things. They always try and keep it safe. And even though that could be good in some situations, in the long term, it's not really good for like long-term massive growth, because it's like you just try and remain comfortable. But one thing I know MTN likes to do is they like to invest in fintech. Some people will see MTN as a communications company, but I personally see it as a technological company. It's the biggest investor in Ghana. Almost every technological fintech related thing in Ghana, think about it, MTN is part of it. So that's one thing I love about MTN, and probably one or two of those investments are going to pay off. So I do like, even though sometimes capex can be a bad thing, I do like that MTN is willing to invest, even though they have massive amounts of money on there. So great to me. I view it as a great thing. Now let's look at the ratios, right? You can see that MTN's PA is currently at 7 Ghana cedis. So it's around fair value, which I do view MTN as trading at fair value. Price to sales ratio is around the same level, but a little bit up. Same for the price to book ratio. Same for the price to book ratio. So when you look at the ratios, it basically tells you that MTN is currently trading at fair value, and I think that's pretty much right. But one thing I would probably want to show you guys is the return on equity, assets, and investment capital. You can see massive growth. Return on equity on average 50 to 50% each year. Amazing figures from MTN. The return on capital invested between 25 to 30%, and the same for return on assets, around 10 to 13%, which I think is great each year, especially with the average investment in Ghana being around 12%, to make return on assets around 12 to 13%, return on equity above 50%. That's crazy. That's value being given to investors, right? Value being given back to shareholders. Amazing to see. And one last thing when it comes to MTN, the best dividend payer in Ghana. They consistently pay out dividends regardless of whatever is happening. DDP, they go pay. COVID, they go pay every time MTN pays. They are semi-annual payers, so they pay twice a year. They've already paid their first dividends for this year. So the second one, you should be expecting it around August, October. So if you are interested, you could probably buy it. This year the dividends was around 56% payout ratio. So I think it's a little bit high. I would love to see that figure a little bit down, but at least below 60% is okay. The annual dividends was 30 pesos, and that's a 10% dividend yield. 10% dividend yield, mass just from dividends. So no, even though Charlie, maybe capital appreciation depends on where you bought it, but amazing to see. So after going over MTN's financials, these are some of the things I've put in the watch list. Now, first of all, is to understand the business. Now, if you're in Ghana, I should expect that you do understand MTN's business. They focus on communications, that's data, voice, services, digital, and also mobile money as well. So that is pretty much a summary of MTN's business. Now, are they growing their free cash flow or revenue, and at what rate? So you can see that they are growing their free cash flow, and they are growing their revenue year on year by 25% plus. The earnings per share year on year growth is 10%. They are approximately 10%, and these figures are all approximate, with 2024 earnings per share at 0.48. I expect it to be around I expect it to be around this figure by end year 2025. It could be even way higher. As margins expanding or flat, they are expanding, not at a very fast rate. I'll probably want to see them expanding at a much faster rate, but then they are expanding, and it's great to see. You can see profit margin expanding, operating margin expanding, gross margin expanding. Like, revenues are expanding, earnings are expanding, EPS are expanding, everything is expanding, cash reserves are expanding, total debt is reducing. So it's amazing to see. So strong cash on hand and efficient capex. Like I said, they have strong cash positions. Started off at 788 million at around 2020, and it's now about 5 billion, or a little over 5 billion in 2024, K1 2025. So they are strongly growing their cash revenues, and like I said, they are also using efficient capex, spending on expenditures that can lead to greater return for the company. But when I compare the assets to liability, it's a little bit short. It's not around the 2.1, like 1:2 figure that I usually like to see, but then so it's mostly 1:36, but so it's one a little bit missed there. Are they paying down debt or low debt? They have a flat debt, but their net position, just because they have a very huge cash position, is really the debt, even though it's not really going down, it's a little bit flat, but then they are consistently paying out they are constantly growing their cash position. That I think is great to see. Are they consistent or growing their dividends? MTN year on year has been growing dividends by roughly 30%, and they pay out every year. If there was a gun to my head and I was told to just pick one company that will consistently pay me dividends to the end of my life, I would choose MTN. Now, how is the ratios compared to their historic ratio? And that one is also a little bit of a maze, because it shows a little bit of fair valuation to a little overvaluation. So I would say MTN is not I won't say you are buying it at the most cheapest price you could get, but then I think at the rate at which they are growing their margins and earnings, you are buying it at a pretty fair price right now. They have massive return on capital and equity above the market average, between 30 to 12%, and they have a durable competitive moat. Now, some people might say MTN has competitors, especially in its data space. I don't think so. I don't think Etotigo is a competitor. I don't think Telecel is a competitor. So I would say they have a strong brand, solid, durable, competitive modes. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into their Q1 2025 financials. Now you can see that their mobile subscribers increased by 5.2% to 29 million. Active data subscribers increased by 10.8%. Active mobile money users increased by 11.5% to 17.4, and their service revenue increased by 39.6% to 5.3 billion. So basically, what I'm seeing from this is almost every part of the business is expanding. They are growing revenues at a crazy rate, and it's amazing to see. Now, when you look at their income statement, I think this is very interesting because it gives you a breakdown of how the revenues are coming into MTN. Now, you can see that data is really their biggest portion of their revenue, made up 2.8 billion in Q1. Now, in Q1, they made a total revenue of 5 billion just in Q1, one quarter. They made, and most of it came from data, 2.8 billion, then voice, 900 million, digital, 82 key, mobile money, 1.3 billion Ghana cedis, and other revenues, 166k. So apart from other services which they didn't break down what comprises of the other revenue, the main revenue sources are all growing year to year compared to what they made last year, Q1 2024. Everything is up. Last year, in just the Q1, they made 3.8 billion, and this year they made 5.3 billion. Now, I would like for you guys to take notice of the data because we're going to discuss it at the latter point of the video when I try and explain why I think MTN is currently down and what investors think about it. Now, we can also see that mobile subscribers were up. The data, Moto data, they are going up. People who are using Momo are also going up. So it just shows that the business, every part of it is increasing, and if it continues at this rate, definitely their earnings are going to continue growing and growing and growing. Now, even though the total revenue went up, their total cost also went up by 32%, and that's a little bit that I don't want to see revenues growing and total cost also growing at a very fast rate. But they explained this in their Q1 statement, and they said total cost recorded a 32.2% year-on-year increase during this period. This growth was driven by economic factors such as currency fluctuations and inflation, which affected both cost of sales and operation expenses. The cost of sales increased by 19.8% year-on-year, mainly due to higher interconnect costs negatively impacted by currency depreciation. So this one thing I want to note, just because we all know what's happening to the cedi right now, but in the first 3 months of 2025, the cedi was actually depreciating, contrary to what is happening now, and that was one of the main reasons why their total cost went up. So definitely it gives me insights that as the cedi is massively appreciating during Q2, and hopefully it's continues to either appreciate or stabilize, we are going to see that their total cost is going to come down a little bit, or at least if not come down, it's going to stabilize. So I think that's something that's interesting, and hopefully it's going to reflect in their Q2 2025 performances. So if you look at everything I've said up to this point, it basically shows that MTN is an okay company. It's a great company with strong fundamentals and strong earnings growth potential. So why then is MTN currently down? And I think it's mainly because of two reasons, and I'm going to explain that. Now, the first reason I believe MTN is down currently, or is having a huge sell-off, is because of profit taking. And I think most people bought MTN when it was around 1 cedi, 50 pesos, 2 cedis, around that price. So MTN's year to date up like 30 to 40%. So especially combined with the robust currency appreciations, a lot of foreign investors that were invested in MTN at around 1 to 2 Ghana cedis, I think, are cashing out and actually making massive return on their money. If you cash out at around 40%, 50% year to date, with massive currency appreciation, when they are buying dollars, you can now buy more dollars, right? So I would probably say the reason why MTN is currently having some level of depreciation or sell off in its share prices because of profit taking. Now, the second reason is also due to uncertainty because of the MML localization structure. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'm going to try my possible best to explain it as best as possible. Now, before I explain, whenever I'm referring to MTN, I'm going to say Scalcom PLC. So keep that in mind. Now, right now, the way MTN or Scalcom PLC is structured is that they have MTN Group, which is the main owners of Scalcom PLC. So MTN Group are from Dubai. Let me take you to the chart and see. So now you are seeing the current structure of MTN. It's made up of MTN Group from Dubai, which owns 67% of Scalcom PLC, and the remaining 32% are minority shareholders, and that is me and you. If you can trade the shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange, that shares that you are trading or buying makes you part of the 32% that owns Scalcom PLC. So the 32% are tradable shares, whilst the 67% is not tradable. It's owned by MTN Group in Dubai and Investment.com, right? And we together completely own Scalcom PLC. Now, Scalcom PLC owns 100% of MLL, and that is one of MTN's company, Mobile Money Limited. Now, Mobile Money Limited is a huge financial institution in Ghana. So if I was to ask you guys one question, mobile money and banks, which one do you think makes more revenue? Let me know. So I'm not saying MTN, not MTN. I'm not referring to Scalcom. MTN is everything relating to Scalcom. That's Momo, data, voice, digital, other services. Remove all of those things and focus on only only mobile money. Compared to banks, which one do you think makes more revenue? I'm sure most of you will say banks, right? It's a lie. Momo makes more money than most banks in Ghana. Momo, as of last year, 2024, made 4.4 billion. Approximately that, I don't know the exact figure, but it made 4.4 billion. Whilst one of the biggest banks in Ghana, GCD, made 4.0 billion. So we have only a small section of Scalcom, that's Momo, making more than one of the biggest banks in Ghana in terms of revenue. So let's go back to the structure. Bank of Ghana now comes out and says, no, how can we have this institution, that's mobile money, one of the biggest financial platforms in Ghana, being owned heavily by an investment group that is not from Ghana, right? So even though you can see MTN Groups owns 67% of Scalcom, and the minority group, that's me and you, own 32%. Bank of Ghana says, nah, it's no good, because if MTN Group leaves, we can be in huge trouble, right? So instead of indirectly owning Momo through owning Scalcom, he wants Ghanaians to actually directly own the Momo part of MTN, right? So it's a new legal investment requirement structure thing the way BOG brought, right? And now they've bought a new structure. So the new structure is that this is the new structure they brought, right? MTN is going to separate the Momo part of its business and create a new company called New Finco, right? Now we as the minority shareholders are still going to own 32% of MTN, that's Scalcom PLC. And the investment group is also going to own 67% of Scalcom PLC. So as you can see here, the minority shareholders, that's me and you who trade on Ghana Stock Exchange, will own 32% of Scalcom, and MTN Group will also own 67%. Now, the Momo part of MTN, they are going to remove it and create new Finco, a new business. And then they are going to make a trust. Bank of Ghana, in collaboration with MTN, are going to create a trust that is going to own 32% of new Finco on behalf of us. Now, so if you own Scalcom, indirectly through the trust, you're going to own 32% of new Finco. Then MTN Group will also own 67% of new Finco, right? They are removing mobile money and making it a whole separate business that we are also going to own 32% of. Then probably 3 to 5 years, they are planning to going to list new Finco on the Ghana Stock Exchange so that you can also trade the shares. So when they list it on the Ghana Stock Exchange, that's when the trust will disappear and they will transfer the 32% of new Finco to the minority shareholders so that we can directly own those shares and we can invest. Now, this is the best way I could explain. And now I'm going to try and also explain why people are uncertain about this, right? So basically, if Momo is removed from Scalcom PLC, now we have two businesses that investors are going to own. So let's say I own MTN right now. I own MTN. Now Momo has been removed and been created as new Finco. So now I'm going to own new Finco and I'm going to own MTN. But what people forget is that the value of MTN has reduced. If MTN, I think, is worth 300 million, it is because Momo is also part of MTN. That's why I think it's 300 million. But now that you've removed Momo from it, now MTN in itself is no longer worth 300 million. It's maybe worth 200 million because you moved Momo, which is worth 100 million from it. But you still own Finco, which is 100 million. And I think it gives investors a little bit of even diversity because now those who are only focused on Momo can invest in Momo. Those who are also only focused on MTN as a communications business can only focus on that, right? So it gives you a little bit of diversity, but somehow your investment is going to be diluted. So even though you are going to be diluted, you are still going to own two portions. Then if you feel like maybe you don't want new Finco, you don't want Scalcom PLC anymore, you can trade it and sell it and do what's not. Hey, I'm tired of my update too. So that's the best possible way for me to explain it. I hope it made sense for you guys and you guys actually understand what I was trying to explain. So they are planning to list it 3 to 5 years from now, and I view it as a positive because I can now own Momo and I can own Scalcom as well. Even though the value of the two will reduce, I can still just invest way more into them. And one reason why investors are a little bit uncertain about this is because some investors do think Momo makes up majority of MTN's revenue. But from our Q1 2025 performance, like I told you guys to remember, you saw that MTN Scale 1 2025, what made the most revenue for 2025 Q1 was data. It was no Momo. And I think people don't really go through the statement, so sometimes they just, because you hear, oh, Momo, so you think Momo makes MTN the most money. Far from the truth. Data makes MTN the most money. Momo is the second, but then even voice is very close to mobile money, right? So, and even when you look at which one is fast growing, data is the one which is growing the fastest. So, I don't think it will really affect Scalcom PLC like that. Then you as the investor, it will also affect you just like that because you are also going to own new Finco. Even though the value of Scalcom will reduce, that value that has reduced will be transferred to you owning new Finco. So I mean, it's not really anything that bad. And I think it also gives you diversity because you can now invest in both of the companies, or you can focus on the one that you really think is worth the most. So if you really love only mobile money, you invest in just that. If you like data, service, voice, the other parts of MTN businesses, you can also invest in Scalcom as well. Next up, we have the discounted cash flow for MTN, and I wanted to really understand how the business is going to look like after the MML localization structure has been. So I tried to value MTN without Momo in it, right? So when you look at their free cash flow, I try to predict how it's going to look like after Momo or the new Finco has been removed from MTN. And when you look at this, you can see that based on my assumptions, I still expect MTN to be trading at the same price. I think its implied value per share will be 3.2 Ghana cedis. And MTN is currently trading, I have not updated this, let me update it right now, 2.98. So basically around the same price, a difference of 7%. So I do think that MTN is still trading at pretty much fair value, especially when you look at the free cash flow. I use 20%. So I'm expecting that, one of my assumptions is I'm expecting that MTN is going to continuously grow its free cash flow by around 20% each year after mobile money has been removed from it, right? And without that, it still be pretty much trading at the same value. But not just that, I also try to value what only mobile money or the new Finco will look like. And based on my assumptions, I think it will be worth around 1 Ghana cedi 16 pesos after it has been separated for MTN. So yeah, if you add the two up, though I think the value of MTN should be around 4 Ghana cedis, around 4.3 Ghana cedis. So that are my assumptions for MTN. I think MTN is pretty much trading at fair value, but because of how great they are consistently growing their earnings, margins, and their revenue, I do think that it does warrant some sort of premium, especially buying the share price at a fair value right now. I do think that they are going to consistently grow their revenues, and even if they don't grow their revenues at a very fast rate, they do pay out dividends each and every year. So there's like just multiple ways to make back your money through MTN. So I believe that it presents a very great opportunity to buy today at a very fair value. So let me know what your thoughts are about MTN. Do you think it's a great it's trading at a great price? Do you think it should go down a little bit more? If I don't know, I would love to know what your thoughts are about MTN. So yeah, that's why I'm continuously going to buy MTN, at least for now, into the Cedi fund. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed day.